The Human Resources Appointment and Equity Committee meeting today is Tuesday, October the 2nd. Council Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Calling the roll, Ms. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Gallagher. Here. Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is absent at the moment. Mr. Miller.
Here.
Ms. Conwell. Ms. Conwell is absent at the moment. We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Do we have any public comment?
No, no one has signed in.
All right, you have the minutes before you from the September 18th meeting. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the September 18th meeting. Do I have a second? Do I have a second? Do I have a second? All right, it's been moved in second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right, thank you so much. We're going to go a little bit out of order so that we can get our PRC department back to work. So if you would like to come forward, we're going to start with item B. Council Clerk, will you read item B into the record?
Resolution number 2018-0189, adopting various changes to the Cuyahoga County non-bargaining classification plan.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, members of council. I'm Albert Bouchahine, the manager of classification and compensation for the Personnel Review Commission. Before you for your consideration are modifications to the county's non-bargaining classification plan, the changes in department's operational needs and routine maintenance necessitate the revision of 7 classifications, the creation of 5 new classifications, and the deletion of 2 classifications. I'm requesting today that you not consider and remove from the resolution the creation of the grants supervisor, the revisions to the grants coordinator and senior grants coordinator classifications that were sent to you previously. We had some last-minute requests for changes from the departments that we met with yesterday, and once we make those changes, we'll bring them back for your consideration. All the other modifications before you were prepared by the PRC class and comp staff, who has worked extensively with the department management and the Department of Human Resources team to ensure that they're fully aware of the proposed changes before you. In accordance with PRC rules, the proposed changes were posted on the PRC's website prior to your consideration today. The PRC considered and approved recommending these changes to you at their September 25th meeting. Madam Chair, we are requesting that these recommendations be approved under second reading suspension of rules. I thank you for your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
And pardon me, could you just identify again the one that are the exhibits that are being omitted?
Yes, it's under the new classifications. It's the grant supervisor. Under revision sections, it's grants coordinator and senior grants coordinator.
All right, I'll open the floor to my colleagues. Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns? Councilman Miller.
So, do we have a substitute to, you want to take 3 items out of this, is that correct?
Correct, Councilman.
So do we have a substitute to do that, or should we just offer an amendment?
I think what we're going to do is be able to offer make the deletions before we go to the full body of the council for the council meeting, and that will be the manner in which we'll proceed with these if upon approval by this committee. Is that okay?
So we're not going to amend it here?
No.
No, okay. And I would like if you could go through the new classifications and explain why these are needed and whether these are positions that are actually in the process of being filled, or is this more in the way of long-term planning?
Madam Chair, Councilman Miller, my understanding that all of these positions are currently have no incumbents in them. There are new classifications that are needed by the departments. And once these classifications are created, the departments will be posting for these positions and then filling them.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Yes. Are these positions entirely new, or do they overlap or replace any existing positions?
The geriatric behavioral health nurse supervisor, the loan portfolio manager, the organizational employee development specialist, and the senior organizational employee development specialist are totally new positions to those organizations. The nursing director for corrections, we currently have a nursing director classification in the class plan, but it is open to both Department of Senior Adult Services and to the jail. But they, through the maintenance process, we see that they do two totally separate functions, so we decided to separate them and create two nursing directors, one for Department of Senior Adult Services and one for Corrections.
Any further questions? Okay, if you could just share with me with regards to the revised classifications, if there's any incumbents or financial impact with these revisions?
Madam Chair, there is no financial impact to any of these classifications. All of the revised classifications are either routine maintenance or just updates. None of them had any changes in the pay grades or the FLSA status.
Okay, and then last, on the deleted classifications, I see the employee benefits coordinator is deleted. There was no one in that position?
That is correct. That classification is vacant.
Okay, and do we no longer need an employee benefits coordinator?
Department of Human Resources Benefits Division has reorganized, and they have several layers of classifications that include employee benefits analysts. The employees will be in that classification. They're no longer using the benefits coordinator classification.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions, comments, or concerns from the committee? There being none, you need this moved to the full body of the council under second reading suspension?
Correct, minus those three classifications I referenced earlier, Madam Chair.
Okay, I'll make the motion. Do I have a second? It's been moved in second. If there are no further questions, comments, or concerns,
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I'm not clear as to whether we're amending the three classifications out at this time, or are we deferring that until the floor of the council?
We will defer that to the floor on council.
Okay, so we're passing it as is, and we're going to do the substitute when we pass it out of council?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine.
So, any further questions, comments, or concerns? There being none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. This will
Thank
move to
you.
the full body of the council. All right, Council Clerk, if you would kindly read the first item into the record.
Resolution number 2018-0179, confirming the county executive's appointment of Fred M. DeGrandis to serve on the Metro Health System Board of Trustees for an unexpired term ending 2/18/2021.
Ms. Pomerantz, if you'll give us a little bit of background regarding this particular appointment and any details you'd like to offer.
Okay, thank you. On behalf of the county executive, I'm here to recommend the appointment of Fred DeGrandis to the Board of Trustees for Mental Health. The Metro Health System Board of Trustees is composed of 10 voluntary members appointed by Cuyahoga County Executive and approved by the council. Per Section 33(9) of the Ohio Revised Code, these trustees are appointed or reappointed for a term of 6 years. Annually, on the first Monday of March, the Board of County Commissioners, together with the probate judge of the county senior in point of service, as well as the judge of the Court of Common Pleas of the county senior in point of service, shall appoint or reappoint for terms of 6 years a sufficient number of members to replace those whose terms have expired. The county executive, along with Honorable Stuart Freeman and the Honorable Anthony Russo, are recommending Fred DeGrandis to serve a term ending February 2021 and replacing former member Reverend Tony Minor.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, Mr. DeGrandis, if you will step forward, state your name for the record and give us a little background and why you'd like to serve on this board.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm Fred DeGrandis, and I welcome the opportunity to address both you and members of council. I'm very honored to be considered for this, what I consider very important appointment. My purposes in desiring the appointment is that I've been a member of the community my whole life in healthcare for 30-plus years and have seen Metro Health and the important role that it plays to provide services to all of our community. I had special insight into that as I was a founding member of the Northern Ohio Trauma Network, and actually very proud of the effort putting together organizations that have elevated trauma care in our community. I have provided you with some background regarding my experience in service. I point out particularly the governance service that I've been honored to serve both locally, regionally, and nationally, and even internationally in the healthcare arena. I bring that service and those experiences to the Metro Board if approved by you and the County Council. And I really just look forward to serving the important mission of an organization that I find vital to the well-being of this community and, more importantly, the community members that it serve, and so many of them that are in need of that service, and without that service, they would not receive it. So it has a wonderful background, and I hope my experiences in my bio give you a larger view of the kinds of things that I've been a part of. I appreciate the opportunity to address you. I know you have a busy schedule. I'm here to answer questions as well as to provide any other information that you would like.
Thank you very much. I'll open it up to my colleagues. You have any questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, I'll start. I have a couple of questions. Where are you currently employed?
I'm actually not, I have my own company right now. I serve as a consultant to some healthcare companies, and I use that umbrella to provide an organization where I vest some governance responsibilities that I have across the country. So I am not employed in any organization today other than serving in a company that I've set up.
Okay, so but you have, or do you do currently serve on the Cleveland Clinic Foundation Board?
I do, and I hope I addressed that as I advanced my information. I have indicated to all that if appointed to this, I will resign from that board. I've had long communications with Cleveland Clinic executives and leaders, and upon appointment, I would step down from that board and also the Fairview Board, which I serve on as well.
Are you a paid member of those boards?
No.
Okay. Why would you, let me see, the wealth of knowledge that you bring is very positive. But I know historically we've had some challenges as with regards to perception. Can you kind of speak to how you might deal with that coming from what many might perceive as a competitor onto the Metro Health Board?
First of all, I know that you've asked for some clarification on this matter. And for your information, number one, that I serve on what is considered a non-fiduciary board in the Cleveland Clinic organization. The Cleveland Clinic has multiple levels of boards. The one I serve on is generally an advisory board. I do not serve on the board of directors. I've had experience in my career in moving from one organization to another. I worked for organizations connected with University Hospital. I worked with organizations like Sisters of Charity. And when you move from one organization to another, your immediate and only fiduciary duty is to the organization that you are working for, and that's what I would do. I have had conversations with the general counsel at the Cleveland Clinic on what my duties are with regard to information that has been made available to me through those experiences. And I think I've done this in the past, and I would do this if being honored to serve on the Metro Board, that I would respect the fiduciary duty and duty of loyalty to the organization that I'm serving. And I really see, quite frankly, not a lot of difficulty because of the type of board that I was on at the Cleveland Clinic. I hope that organizations, and this is a personal philosophy, and one that I've advanced during my career, evidenced probably best by the creation of the Trauma Network, which originally was between the clinic and Metro and then expanded to university. There are many places healthcare in this town should cooperate and work together. There are other places that appear to be competitive, and that's the world of healthcare. I think I pretty much understand that, working in all the systems in this community or serving in both university and the Sisters of Charity. So I hope those backgrounds bring an experience that would provide value to Metro, and quite frankly, a unique value. As you note in my background, I also served on the Ohio Hospital Board. I've served on the Ohio University Board, which is a board that advances the education program. So those I bring to that, but I know that I will respect confidentiality, duty of loyalty, and duty of service to the organization that I'm from. So as I was asked about this, I immediately determined that I would be required to resign from the non-fiduciary boards of the Cleveland Clinic. So instructed the clinic of that, and have removed myself from meetings at the clinic since this matter has been pending.
So you also are on the board of North Coast Health, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and that's a West Side Healthcare organization that also provides healthcare services to low income and uninsured, pretty much this Medicaid, Medicare
Correct.
population. So
Correct.
can you address how you would proceed if you were appointed to the Metro Board?
I personally do not, actually, maybe breaking news, although we've announced it. North Coast is in the process of coming together with Neighborhood Family Practice, which is a broader organization of about 6 sites that serve what I consider to be a consistent mission with Metro, is to serve the most vulnerable, those that, for want of a better term, don't have access to care for reasons that make no sense to me, but that's what those organizations are for. I think those organizations have a consistent mission. If in fact there was a matter brought before either North Coast or the new entity, Neighborhood Family Practice, that had a contractual or any relationship with Metro, I would recuse myself from that. I would first disclose my relationships, which I've always done, and then recuse myself from any conversation relating to that, any dialogue on the board relating to that.
So if I understood you clearly, you don't see a conflict
I
there?
do not see a conflict there, but I welcome the input of anyone else if in fact you do. I just don't. I think we're serving the parts of the community that, quite frankly, we could use a lot more partners in doing that.
So what do you think, what in your opinion is the mission of the county hospital, of Metro?
The mission of the county hospital is actually beautiful, okay? It's designed for a public purpose as it is by both a legal structure and I think a mission structure. It is designed to serve our community as a safety net for all of us. It's designed to provide great clinical services and great academic services and education services for all. It serves as noble mission as you could find in healthcare, and that's what attracted me to it, both now and over the years. So its service is to provide, its duty and mission is to provide great service to all, regardless of ability to pay, and to be there to provide very special services like trauma and other services it provides, that without those services, this community would not be as well served in the healthcare arena as it is today.
Thank you. Let the record reflect County Councilwoman Conwell has joined us. I'm going to open it up to my colleagues and see if they have any additional questions, comments, or concerns. Councilman Jones.
What would you describe the scope of care for the county hospital? What should the focus be as far as the scope?
I think it has been. It has been focused, number one, on providing care for the community regardless of ability to pay. Its continuing focus, though, is to provide as high-quality service as it can across the broadest spectrum in healthcare, because patients require a continuum of care, not just an instance of care. And I think over the years, the county hospital, under the leadership of today and the leadership in the past, has provided outstanding and excellent services in most and many specialties. It educates, it cares for people, and it provides services for all in a way that others don't.
We know that the state has passed House Bill 111. What, in your opinion, is the hospital's? It allows them to operate outside of the geographic boundaries of the county. What is your opinion of this new landscape?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it and lived in this community in the healthcare arena, and so I saw a change like that. I think the way it has been constructed is in many ways elegant, because it does not allow for resources that are generated in this community and given by the county to be used for that. I believe its sole purpose is to provide opportunity for care in the places that it would provide care, but then to use the resources from those opportunity to care to advance their mission. So from a personal point of view, if asked, I would support it. And I think the way it has been developed and organized, particularly with respect to resources and how to use those resources effectively, makes sense to me.
Do you believe the hospital can serve a greater region and still effectively serve Cuyahoga County?
You know, I do, and I actually think, obviously, the reason for the hospital, at least as best as I know it, and, you know, I've not spoken to the hospital leaders or their board members about this, but looking in the community which I've lived in, I think that's its purpose, to do a better job for serving the community by being able to reach a bit further and garner, provide great care there, and then garner resources that can serve the core mission of the organization in a more effective way.
Thank you.
Councilman Gallagher?
Thanks for being here, Mr. DeGrandis.
Thank you.
As you're probably well aware, you've found out that we did have struggles in the past with appointments to the board. In particular, an individual who was married to a person from the Cleveland Clinic, and we denied that person just basically on the optics of it. I think with you, we have an even more aggressive concern because of your association with the Cleveland Clinic. Not that that's a bad thing, and I've never thought of the clinic and Metro being competitors per se. I think House Bill 111 changes that immensely, and that's where my concern right now lies with moving someone that was so associated with the Cleveland Clinic. I mean, institutional, 30 years with the clinic?
No, I was, so, if I could, all right? I have 30 years in healthcare in Cleveland, all right? I started at Lakewood Hospital when it was a public hospital and was there for 12 years, actually. I then went to St. John Hospital, part of the Sisters of Charity system, and also part of the university system, and served there for 11 years. And then I served another 11 years at the Cleveland Clinic. So I think, from my perspective, and, you know, I appreciate optics, all right? From my perspective, I bring a host of experience from all the systems in Cleveland. I bring some experience outside of the community. I served on Ascension Health's board. I serve on the Cancer Treatment Centers of America board. I serve on the ALS National Board. I serve as a member of the American Heart Association board and chair. I think I bring sets of experiences that you could focus on the Cleveland Clinic, but it's been a part of my career, one I'm very proud of, but it's far from not all my career. My career is broader than that, and those are your decisions to make about, you know, optics, but I think the vast level of experience I have across the community gives me a unique understanding of healthcare in this community and other places, and I would hope to bring, you know, that thought process, those experiences to my duties on the Metro board, and you know, I hope that would be satisfactory to the community and satisfactory to all of you, which, you know, this is an important appointment for you. It's probably as high appointment as you could make in your role. I do understand that. I hope, yeah.
And I appreciate that. And when, you know, I found it interesting that when this government switched over because of the unfortunate happenings of the past, Metro had the same problem. They just didn't have the same ink that we had. And the board was a big problem, I thought. And we slowly, with others, changed that direction, have changed and molded Metro into what I consider to be more of a people's hospital, more of a taxpayer's place of refuge. And I appreciate what you bring, but I just wonder if the fit is there. And the clinic part of it historically has been a problem with us in the beginning, and I thought that was legitimate, and I today think that was legitimate. I just think right now with you, I don't see the fit. I see a concern. I see someone that may or may not be recusing himself in certain situations. I don't want a part-time member. I want somebody that can walk into a room and look at an agenda and go through it and not worry about concerns of recusal. And I see that. And I, again, House Bill 111, I think increases the possibility of a part-time person being put on the board, and that would be you. And and that's not saying a bad thing about you. I think if anything, your experiences have led you to a point where you are looking at conflict. And we don't know that, but I can perceive that and I see that. And having the history of what we did in the past with the closeness of an individual being married to an individual from the Cleveland Clinic, and that being optics, if you want to call it, I think it's perception. Perception is real.
If I may respond? Thank you. I certainly appreciate your opinion and your duty. I believe every board member that's on any board, including the Metro Board, because of their community experiences, and I know the relationship, I know some of the relationships of folks on the board to Case Western Reserve and other business organizations. I have from time to time to disclose a potential relationship and then take the processes that are appropriate for a board. I think it's very common on boards that this happens. I don't think it makes me in any way a part-time member. And I believe that I offer some experiences and some opportunities to the community, which I'd like to share, that would be of great value. It's a little different than the situation before. I know that situation well. I worked with the individual. And suffice it to say, my wife doesn't work for the Cleveland Clinic. I don't have a family relationship there.
No, it's you.
Yeah, I have a past relationship
Yeah.
there. And, I say to you and to other members of this body that I am fully confident that I can deal with from time to time, interests come up that need to be disclosed. But I far from thinking it's a part-time job. Because in a lot of ways, healthcare should be working together more than competing. And I firmly believe that. And the work that we've done in the trauma area, quite frankly, in the cancer area as well in this community, where there's a consortium of all the community players, I think those bring great value. And I have some of those experiences that may be unique to the board. So I appreciate your thoughts, and I appreciate you bringing it directly to me. And my hope is that I've given you some insight that might make you think differently. Thank you.
Councilwoman Conwell.
Good morning. Through the chair to Mr. DeGrandis, I apologize if I asked something that I missed during your introduction. Just on the last point, did the county reach out to you for this appointment, or you reached out to the county for this appointment?
Armin reached out to me and asked me if I would be interested in serving on the Metro Board. We knew each other from my relationship with the Global Center for Innovation, and that's really how it happened.
Okay. Recently, the press conference should have come out or hasn't come out. Are you familiar with the merging of Recovery Resources? That's the possibility of Metro Health.
I've heard about it, but I didn't know that it was completed.
Okay. Do you have any feelings about that or anything?
I've known Recovery Resources for, 25 years. It is a good organization, and I think that one thing's going on in the community is great organizations like that, North Coast Health and others, are finding that being a standalone and smaller organization has a lot of challenges to it, so they look for partners. And they look for partners to continue their mission. So I think that would be the purpose of that, and I applaud that organization for the service, and it probably couldn't find a better home than Metro Health if that's what's going to transpire.
And Mr. DeGrandis, you mentioning your 30 years of public service, you did not mention university hospitals. Have you worked in any capacity or been on any of their boards?
No, I did not work on their boards. Actually, my relationship with university was at St. John's. University became a partner of St. John's with the Sisters of Charity. I was an executive in that organization. And that was the relationship that I had with the university. So I did not work on their boards.
So you were an
I attended
executive,
board meetings, though, you know, as an executive, so I wasn't a voting board member.
so you would, it's better to say that you're familiar with all the healthcare systems here in Cuyahoga County, somewhat.
I've had experiences with them, you know, I've been away from them for a day and they change, okay? The business is what it is, and, but I've had experiences with Sisters of Charity University, the Cleveland Clinic. And then my roots were at Lakewood when it was public, and understand the nature of a public hospital, its purposes, and its value.
And earlier you stated that that the mission of Metro is focused on continuum of care without the ability to pay. So what do you think, as a board member, if elected or confirmed, that you would do in hopes of helping Metro with the indigent patients' not ability to pay? What financial thing do you think you could bring for that?
You know, I don't come to you with a specific program for Metro, because really that comes from the CEO. I come to you to say that I would provide advice and advocacy for that element of our population. I think, quite frankly, things like Recovery Resources, if going forward, is the kind of place where you do find, you know, that population being more effectively served. I think it's such a noble mission that has attracted me from the day I got into healthcare to today. One of my great mentors in healthcare was Terry White, who was one of the executives at at Metro Health over the years. So I come with a passion to see that grows further, and that it deepens itself, and that as it grows and expands in service and offerings and location, that it always keeps its focus first on that important mission.
And as far as the Medicaid, there's a lot of changes going on.
Yeah.
How are you staying abreast of that?
Well,
I
I
just want
would-
to state that I was very against, I think it was before we got to today, it was maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago, that John stood before us and said that downstate was thinking about co-pays for people that are on Medicaid. So against that.
You know, so I've had a lot of experience in that. I was the chair of the Ohio Hospital Board when Medicaid expansion came into Ohio, and we deeply advocated for Medicaid expansion. It is one of the best things that has happened across the country. It has taken people from settings that make no sense to provide care to better settings that provide care. I think the question is access. We are, quite frankly, many times imposing a suburban mindset on an urban problem. And the urban problem is to get to the right place. And once that happens, the cost of care will be dramatically reduced. And it's not going to be reduced by small copays and things like that, or even, you know, things that are going on in the legislature now about, you know, work requirements and all that. We need to get these people to the right spot right now. And quite frankly, so many people, as it was expanded, came to an emergency room. And why? Because they didn't have a doctor. And hospitals had the really important duty of finding a way to get those folks to a care setting that was best for them. And if allowed to continue, it will bring down costs dramatically, as we've seen in uncompensated care coming down. And probably more importantly, we'll take care of people at the right time, instead of when they are really very sick, which is what an emergency room does. So I'm a strong advocate of the expansion program, and I really do believe it's one of the best pieces of healthcare legislation that have been passed in this country besides Medicare and Medicaid.
Well, I agree with you that the best thing is to have access to care, and that point, it would seem that would be the mission for all the hospitals. So at some point, there needs to be some kind of communication of how you work globally to keep the access to care down, and that's just a statement. And my last point is you made a statement that healthcare should be working together more than competing, and I have to agree with you on that. but you also, as big conglomerates, you have to look out for the little organizations as well, which also goes back to your point of access to care. For example, Neon. They're all over in the east urban side of the communities, and was trying to bridge something with Dr. Boutros in order to be able for them to still survive. I mean, there's many. I mean, we have transportation issues.
This is what I believe on that, okay? Because I'm familiar with these organizations. We have neighborhood family practice primarily on the west side. You have Circle Health now, which merged with families and children. I think over time, these organizations are going to have a much more intimate relationship with larger healthcare systems, and that makes a whole lot of sense. I think as healthcare systems become more responsible for the continuum of care for community health in general, and actually payment systems move that way, that'll be a natural progression. I'm not sure we can wait for it.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns from the committee? Yes, Councilman Jones.
Thank you. Mr. DeGrandis, you mentioned that you would not be a part-time board member, but you have served on the board of Cleveland Clinic without any break in service. Share with me how you would turn off the knowledge that you have. It's secret. It's trade secret based, confidential. And I would include Fairview as well. How do you see yourself?
I think it would,
dealing with that challenge?
If I'm familiar with, if I would be familiar with plans of that organization to expand in areas that might be, primary service area of Fairview, that's got to come off, and now my duty would be to Metro. Okay, you just can't go there. Those are the only kind of, overwhelming trade secrets. The one thing about hospitals, though, let me tell you, they give a lot of indication of what they're going to do next by their advertising and their community statements. I think people overstate the innards of a hospital, that they have so many, large secrets about what their next plan is. I think most of us that have been in the business kind of know what places are going to go here and there. But anything that was particular to compensation of folks, that stays, you can't bring that over there to be to compare and contrast. But I think it's mostly the service expansion. And quite frankly, the boards that I've served on at the clinic don't do that. That is for the board of directors. And as you asked for clarification about that issue within the county, I spent some time trying to explain it, as did others. But the board that I sat on did not have the duty in that area. It had duty of quality, safety, credentialing locally. And that was it. The duty of budgeting, contracting, planning, and other strategic initiatives were at the board of directors. So I felt very comfortable that what I learned from just, my understanding of the community, I could segregate, and it would not be difficult. I had the same experience when I went from Lakewood to St. John's. I couldn't carry my Lakewood experience out to St. John's or things that I might know. You don't do that, okay? But I found it very, quite frankly, a relatively easy transition in markets that overlapped. So I've had some experience doing it, and I feel very confident that, my own compass, forget about all the law and the rules, I have integrity myself as a person, and ethical duty. And, I just didn't have any trouble with what it was, because when you take a step to another organization, that's its primary purpose. And, you engage in the primary purpose of that organization. You don't disclose that another organization may be doing something, but that doesn't stop you from being in the conversation. So, once again, I don't think it's part-time. I appreciate the thought around it and the concern. My belief is that I would be a very active board member, as I've been on every one. And I'm very proud of the fact that on almost every board that I've been on, at some point I've been asked to be the chair of that board. You know, and so I think I offer some opportunity, but, you know, I recognize and respect your duties and appreciate your service, by the way. I served on my local school board for 12 years and know that the job that's behind this, you know, is a tough job, and appreciate your effort.
Councilman Gallagher?
Just want to get this straight. Did you call Armand or did Armand call you? Because I asked that and I don't know if I'm hearing the right thing.
Well, Armin and I talked, okay, so.
And when did you talk about this?
We talked about service in the county, okay, during the time I was at the Global Center. And I talked about service. I always have been, interested in the Metro Board, told him I had an interest. And then he called me when an opportunity came up.
Okay,
That's how,
thank you.
that's how it transpired.
All right, I think we've had enough questions and response. I thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
And sharing your background and your wealth of experience, which I think is broad and very valuable. But after much deliberation, and while I understand there is no legal or ethical reason that would prevent you from serving, due to the perception, optics, and this body's clear concern regarding conflicts and possibly impacting both the Cleveland Clinic Foundation and Metro Health System, coupled with the 60-day rule, I will make the motion to move this to the full body of the council, but not to confirm. Do I have a second? It's been moved in second. If there are no questions, comments, or concerns, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right, thank you very much. Council Clerk, will you read the next item into the record?
Resolution number 2018-0192, confirming the county executive's appointment of the Honorable Michael Dillon Brennan to serve on the Cuyahoga County Planning Commission, representing the Heights region for an unexpired term ending 12/31/2020.
All right, if you will give us a little background regarding this appointment.
Thank you. On behalf of the county executive, I would like to recommend Mayor Michael Brennan, Mayor of University Heights, to fill the Heights vacant seat on the Planning Commission. This 11-member county planning commission is comprised of 3 county representatives and 8 representatives from the county's planning regions. All are appointed by the county executive, except for the City of Cleveland representative, who is appointed by Cleveland's Mayor, Frank Jackson. The county planning regions include Chagrin Southeast Region, Cleveland Region, Cuyahoga Region, Heights Region, Hillcrest Region, South Central Region, and West Shore Region. Mayor Brennan is being considered and filled the vacant seat of the Heights Region.
All right. Good morning, Mayor. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you, Councilwoman Brown?
I'm well. Will you state your name for the record and what you will bring to this position as the newly elected mayor? You'll be replacing Susan Enfield?
Yes, I
right.
suppose I will.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, my name is, well, first of all, I want to thank you and thank the members of the committee. My name is Michael Dillon Brennan, and I am the mayor of University Heights. I'm here today to express my interest in serving on the Cuyahoga County Planning Commission. Specifically, I ask for your consideration and approval of appointment to the vacant Heights Region seat on the Planning Commission. The seat is an appointment of the county executive who has nominated me to the position. The Heights region is composed of Cleveland Heights, East Cleveland, Shaker Heights, and University Heights. I have lived in 2 of those cities, Cleveland Heights and University Heights, and I am familiar with all 4. Interestingly, all 4 mayors of these communities are relatively new, either recently elected or appointed. And in the short time I've been in office, I have developed working relationships with the mayors and managers of my neighboring cities. In University Heights, we have successfully obtained CDBG funding for pedestrian improvements in our Cedar Green district. We have a final application before the state to create a citywide community reinvestment area. We're taking steps to create a community investment corporation. We should be voting on that tomorrow. And we created an economic development department and named former Solon Mayor Susan Drucker to be our first city economic development director. As mayor of University Heights and previously as a board member of Future Heights, which is now the CDC for Cleveland Heights, I am especially cognizant of the fact that the success of our community is tied to the success of our surrounding communities. I've been promoting the Heights as a great place to live, work, and play since before my tenure as mayor. I believe I will represent the interests of the several Heights cities in addition to my own city. My interests here, of course, are not limited to the Heights, but extend to the full county as well. As a proponent of multimodal transportation, as a bicyclist and nature enthusiast, I'm interested in and encouraged by the Green Waste Project, the Urban Tree Canopy Assessment, and the County Climate Change Action Plan. When it comes to the greenways and the East Side Greenways, this is a work in progress with still much more work to be done. But with the collaborative effort with the Metro Parks and with NOACA, I'm interested in and would be committed to the ongoing progress of the greenways. As to the Climate Change Action Plan, I support the county's determination to join the nationwide effort by local governments to follow the provisions of the Paris Climate Agreement. And finally, I would be remiss if I did not bring up the role of the Planning Commission with respect to the Solid Waste District. With China's national sword policy, the impact on recycling here in the United States is greatly affected and in many ways greatly limited, much to the dismay of those of us who attempt to be good stewards of our resources and who are mindful to recycle. It has been difficult to get people to appreciate that some of the things that were practically recyclable are now increasingly only theoretically recyclable. That the demand for recyclable materials has diminished due to world markets, China in particular, and will not improve for us quickly. The Solid Waste District has taken steps to educate the public about what we should be placing into our recycling, but why is something we need to work on as people rely on old information over more recent developments. But thank you for allowing me to address you. I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Mayor. I serve on this planning commission, and given your background and experience, I think you will be a valuable member, and I look forward to working with you. I will open up the floor to my council colleagues if there are any questions, comments, or concerns. Councilman Miller.
Madam Chair, Mayor, I just want to say that I'm really impressed by your involvement in the climate action plan and the environmental and recycling issues. And I think our planet needs a lot of help, and it's something that we all need to be involved in at the local level and make contributions to help get us to a better place. And I really appreciate your concern and involvement in this, and I'm happy to support you for the appointment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Miller.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Councilwoman Conwell.
Through the chair to the mayor, you mentioned something about cannabis. Can you go back over that again?
Oh, canopies, urban
Canopies,
canopies.
okay, all
Yes,
right.
no, sorry about that. No, this wasn't an I like beer moment, no.
'Cause I know I was against that legislation every time they put it on the ballot, so I just wanted to make sure.
No,
Thank you.
just to that end, our city, University Heights, is in its 40th year as a Tree City USA, and only two other cities in Cuyahoga County have been a Tree City USA for as long or longer, and that would be Lakewood and Cuyahoga, or rather Cleveland Heights.
Thank you.
And I think we have a meeting coming up, so I will make the recommendation to move this to the full body of the council under second reading suspension. Do I have a second? All right, it's been moved in second. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? There being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right, thank you very much. This will move to the full body of the council. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your time.
Thank you.
All right, Council Clerk, will you read the next item into the record?
Resolution number 2018-0193, confirming the county executive's appointment of various individuals to serve on the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority Board of Trustees for an unexpired term ending 3/31/2020.
Thank you very much. Ms. Pomerantz, if you'll give us a little background regarding this appointment.
Sure. I'd like to mention that a few things. First of all, one of the appointees, Terry Joyce, cannot be here today. Wanted to make sure all members of council have the letter that was being sent by him, and through the chair, I'd like to read it if possible. I, Terrence P. Joyce, am honored to be considered for the appointment to the Regional Transit Board. As a lifelong Clevelander, I am excited to serve the citizens of this county in order to advance the role of transit to our constituents. I believe as business managers of Laborers 310, Local 310, I see the daily needs that the transit system offers our membership. I hope to further that connection to the building trades with the desire to increase ridership in the city. It has become challenging for our members to have access to affordable parking, so I want to make sure that RTA is at the forefront of their minds. In my role as trustee of our multi-employer trust funds, I have enjoyed a harmonious relationship with all employers in order to advance the well-being of the participants. I will bring that attitude to this board in order to move the important asset of the transit system in our county. Sincerely, Terrence P. Joyce. He could not be here today due to travel for work that was built in a long time ago before this was scheduled. I'd also like to make note that Reverend Lucas, a board member of the RTA, is here for any other additional questions, and that on behalf of the county executive, recommend the following appointees. Mr. Terry Joyce to term ending March 2020, replacing Sunny Nardi, and Mr. Justin Bibb to a term ending March 2021, which is a correction that needs to be amended on the docket. The Board of Trustees of RTA is composed of 10 members, including 4 members appointed by the mayor of Cleveland, 3 members elected by the mayors and city managers, and 3 members appointed by the Cuyahoga County Executive. Currently, Karen Gabriel Moss is serving as the county executive's appointment. Mr. Justin Bibb's term ending 2021 would be replacing board member Gary Norton. RTA is a political subdivision of the state. All power and authority granted to RTA is vested in and exercised by the Board of Trustees, who are charged with managing and conducting RTA's affairs. This board also establishes overall RTA administrative policies, which are implemented by the general manager. And that being said, I know Mr. Justin Bibb is here for any other questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions for Ms. Pomerantz before we move forward? All right, before we have Mr. Justin Bibb express his desire to serve on this committee, I'd like to introduce the amendment that you should have before you for our 2018-0193 appointments to the RTA Board, amending the unexpired term of 3/31/2020 to reflect the following unexpired terms for each appointment: Justin M. Bibb ending 2/28/2021, Terrence P. Joyce ending 2/29/2020. May I have a motion to accept the amendment? Has the motion been moved? Is there a second? All right, all in favor of accepting the amended legislation, please say aye. Aye. All right. Mr. Bibb, if you will kindly state your name for the record and your desire to serve.
Good morning. My name is Justin Bibb, and first off, thank you to the council for considering my nomination. As someone who grew up in the Mount Pleasant Corlett neighborhood, public transit is very important to me. I grew up riding the bus with my grandmother as she came downtown to pay her bills. I grew up riding the bus to attend my summer jobs across the entire county, and I grew up riding the bus to go to high school at Trinity High School in Garfield Heights, Ohio. And, you know, I've lived in cities across the country and also across the world, and I've seen the importance of public transit as a key driver of economic prosperity and economic development. I know it's an important asset and tool to our county and to our residents across the county as well. Secondly, currently right now, I manage Gallup's Global Cities practice, so I spend a lot of my time working with mayors, county executives, foundations, and public-private partnerships across the country on how do we use data and analytics to make cities better. And these issues of mobility and transit are top of mind for a lot of leaders across the country, particularly as you think about how to create equity-based transit. And I know that 60% of riders across the county use public transit to get to work. And so it's important to kind of bring that lived experience to the board. And I hope that I can bring my lived experience, not only from working with clients on these issues across the country, but my lived experience and seeing how it impacted my family. I hope I can bring that experience to the board to really ensure that RTA can be an effective public agency moving forward.
Thank you so much. Do you have any questions, comments, or concerns from the committee? Will you? Yes, Councilwoman Conwell.
Through the chair to Mr. Bibb, just welcome back.
Thank you.
You've always worked with the county
Yes.
in some form or another, especially educational components. And I know me and Councilman Miller really have a thing about transportation and being able to increase the fares or the rides, the stops, but going down on the fares. So you bring a young perspective to the board, and we're looking forward to for you to do some great work, and let's do something to increase the ridership at RTA. So you're a young mind. Didn't you recently go to New York or something like that?
Yeah, so I left
you can bring that knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I used to take the subway every day in New York, which is really hard. So
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Go ahead,
More
Councilman
of a
Jones.
comment. Well, Justin, we know you first and foremost, and I know the knowledge you bring, but you made the comment lived experience, and I think that's critical. Our residents, our residents have a lot of needs, and RTA is critical to their life, to their success. When you mention the word analytics as part of it, and I can't speak to knowing how it's used in this context, but when you said it, the first thought that came to me was the NBA sports, and they talked about analytics and measuring numbers, and I want to get too sports oriented, but the negative on it was that there were people who had experience in the game, and they were questioning those who hadn't played the game, but were doing everything based on analytics, just numbers. What players are best? How can you be effective? So when you mention the analytics, speak a little more detail
Absolutely.
about your life experience, layered on top of
Absolutely.
of the analytics.
Well, one thing that comes to mind for me is I know that I wouldn't have been able to have a summer job caddying in Beechwood without being able to access public transit. And that summer job as a kid growing up in the Mount Pleasant Corlett neighborhood exposed me to a whole new world that I didn't experience before. And when it comes to the lived experience of our residents, I think the pain points they go through every day are just as important as what the data tells us. And I think you have to combine both to make informed decisions around good operating policy, around good public policy. And so I want to make sure that as a board member, I can, bring that perspective of what's the new data out there, what's the new technology out there that are making public transit agencies effective and innovative, but also ensuring that we're doing it from a people-based perspective. Data doesn't happen in a vacuum. It impacts people's lives every day. And that's kind of what I champion with my clients across the country in my work at Gallup, that, we can't think that the voices of folks don't matter. And so I think that perspective is key in terms of making informed decisions with a resident-oriented perspective, but also ensuring we're innovative and growing new opportunities to be effective as a public agency.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Miller.
There are a couple of elephants in the room that haven't been referred to yet, so I'm going to refer to them. The first is that there have been a few hiccups in the goings-on at RTA in over the past several months, and my question is what do you think that RTA needs to do to restore confidence in its capabilities and integrity, and how would you contribute to that?
That's a great question, Councilman Miller. I think for me personally, I need to really study the issues, get a perspective on the culture, get a really good understanding of what's happening inside the organization first. And then from there, I think we can have some informed opinions or recommendations on how we go about restoring that trust. How do we ensure employees are engaged inside the organization? How do we ensure that the riders we're serving feel like they have a high quality service? And then thirdly, how are we building the right effective partnerships within the advocacy community to address some of these issues around funding and so forth to ensure that we are delivering on our mission of providing quality transit services to our residents?
Madam Chair, to Mr. Bibb, the second question is that, as you know, the RTA suffered a catastrophic loss of $20 million per year in annual revenue because of the change in policy on Medicaid sales tax, a change that after some transitional assistance is exhausted becomes permanent. And my question is whether you believe that there is a chance that RTA can find ways to correct that situation and maintain service levels without asking for a tax increase, or whether you believe that RTA is going to need to go to the voters at some point to request more money.
Councilman Miller, to your question, I'm not at a position right now to make a determination on that. I think as a board member, I would want to create a really strong partnership with the county council, the county executive, and our community partners to come up with the right strategy to assess, are there things internally RTA can do to find additional savings? Are there other external opportunities to raise additional funding to support it? But I think at this stage, it's important to get a grasp of the issues, study the problem, build the right collaboration with both the county executive and the county council, and then collectively as a board member, hopefully come up with a good recommendation that we can kind of agree on to address that issue in the long run.
Madam Chair, to my colleagues, our role in this process is to advise and consent, and I'm going to do a little bit of both. First, I'm going to consent because both of the candidates are extremely well qualified, have been active in the community, and have a lot of institutional knowledge, which would be beneficial. But when it comes to the advice part, I think that given the problems that RTA has had and the very challenging strategic decisions that we have to make going forward, I think RTA would benefit from having one or a couple of people who are on the board that are not part of the institutional network that kind of runs this community, and that truly brought in an outsider perspective and would feel the freedom to inject new ideas and some fairly radical approaches. Not that they would always end up being adopted, but at least that a broader range of possibilities would be considered, and so I'm putting that out there for the executive's consideration when future appointments to this board come up. I think that we got to think outside the box on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there are no additional questions, comments, or concerns, do we need to move this to the full body of the council under second reading, Ms. Pomerantz? Do you know when the next meeting is? I think we have someone who can confirm when the next meeting might be.
I believe it's October 9th.
October the 9th. So our meeting actually isn't until the 10th, but we can still proceed and move this to the full body of the council under second reading suspension. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. I just have an additional comment before I ask for the full motion of the council. I think I've come to know Justin this summer, and know that he brings a wealth of knowledge, just an awesome temperament, and I'm excited about this appointment, and I'm very excited that we're bringing some young minds and young thoughts to some of these processes, because it is really that population that we need to attract to continue to make our city grow. And so I commend Armin Budish, and I commend you for your willingness to serve in this capacity, and I'd like to add my name to this resolution. So all in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you
so
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Resolution number 2018-0194, confirming the county executive's reappointment of Jennifer Crossman to serve on the Child Abuse and Child Neglect Regional Prevention Council of the Ohio Children's Trust Fund, representing the Great Lakes region for the term 9/28/2018 to 9/27/2020.
All right.
Thank you, Councilwoman. On behalf of the county executive, I would like this committee to consider Jennifer Crossman to serve on the Ohio Children's Trust Fund, Great Lakes Regional Prevention Council. This is a board reappointment. Ms. Crossman is here with us today, and the Ohio Children's Trust Fund's purpose is to establish standing working groups, develop and complete needs assessments, and develop, approve, and implement a regional child abuse and child neglect prevention plan based on the Ohio Children's FUST criteria. This board consists of a minimum of 15 members. 8 are appointed by the governor, 2 members are appointed by the House of Representatives, 2 members appointed by the Senate, and recently, in 2016, an expansion that includes 2 members appointed for each county. For the record, we also still have another opening available for this board. I will notify the county executive later on this afternoon.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Pomerantz. If you'll please step forward, state your name for the record and your desire to serve on this board, and go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of council. My name is Jennifer Grossman. I am an employee, with Cuyahoga County Health and Human Services. I've worked for the county for 21 years. And as Michelle said, I have been appointed to this Regional Council for the Prevention of Child Abuse and Neglect for the past 2. I'm a resident of the city of Cleveland. I've worked in a lot of capacities with the Division of Children and Family Services, and now for the HHS Director, Walter Parfiowitz, as a Special Programs Coordinator. And I've really enjoyed being a member of the council. I've learned and I've met a lot of members of the other counties in the region, Lake County, Ashtabula, Geauga, and have learned from them and built a collaboration with them to come up with a prevention plan that we are all proud of. I thank you for inviting me here today, and am hopeful that I can be reappointed to continue our work and represent Cuyahoga County.
Thank you very much. I just, as I look, your reappointment, is this something that you sought or something that was introduced to you as an opportunity to serve in a greater capacity?
It was a little bit of both. I did talk to my then boss, Thomas Pristo, about it and indicated that I was interested.
Okay,
But
thank you. Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns from the committee? Councilwoman,
Isn't this the one that you're on, deal? Okay.
all right. Councilman Miller?
Madam Chair and my colleagues, by way of background, the Great Lakes Regional Prevention Council has a lot to do and a lot in common with the new county government in the sense that that prior to 2016 we had an entirely different system in which the Ohio Trust Fund contracted directly with the counties, but at that time the legislature decided in its wisdom that they wanted a new model, and the model involved creating the 8 regional councils around the state, which would each have 2 representatives per county, plus in some cases some others, and that they would develop regional child abuse prevention plans, put out RFPs, solicit providers, provide services, do April month prevention programs, do public awareness campaigns, and we've done these things. The model is not without its problems. The state can be difficult to work with, and it's cumbersome. We make decisions at the regional council level, and sometimes the decisions get reviewed and second guessed at the state level, and the process can be long. And the state wants the very best child abuse and neglect prevention people on the councils, which we've got. But they also want the services provided by the very best agencies, and usually the very best agencies are run by the same people that are on the councils, which has created some issues and problems of conflict of interest, which have not totally been resolved. So we have our work cut out for us to continue to implement this model and try to make this work. But Ms. Grossman has done a truly exemplary job for the Regional Prevention Council, and we've worked hard, and we've all worked together. There's been no infighting between counties over resources. We've all worked together, and I think we've done about as well as we could do under the circumstances. And I would strongly and enthusiastically recommend Ms. Grossman's reappointment.
Well, we certainly value your opinion, Councilman Miller, and thank you for that. Are there any additional questions, comments, or concerns? If there are none, then I'll move this to the full body of the council under second reading suspension. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved in second. If there are no questions, comments, or concerns, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming down, and thank you for your time. Will you read the last item into the record?
Ordinance number 2018-0011, providing for modifications to the Cuyahoga County Human Resources Personnel Policies and Procedures Manual Employee Handbook to be applicable to all county employees.
Thank you very much. Okay, committee and those who are viewing us, Mr. King from our staff will present today. While all the changes before us are not introduced or drafted by council or its staff, in an effort to streamline the presentation, Mr. King will present, and upon completion, HR will remain here to answer any questions or address anything that Mr. King is unable to do so. Mr. King?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, since Council's adoption of the overhauled HR Policies and Procedures Manual this past March, the Department of Human Resources and council leadership and staff have been in close communication to respond to and, if necessary, address any issues that have arisen since the implementation of the new policy. As you know, it was a pretty comprehensive overhaul of the policy, so it was anticipated that there may be some issues that we needed to revisit. The legislation in front of you today is a first cut at addressing some of the legal and operational issues that have come up. Just so everyone's aware, we expect HR will also be introducing another follow-on piece of legislation at some point in the new year. So before I dive into this, if anybody has any questions about the process, let me know. If not, otherwise, we can jump into the substantive components of the legislation. All right. So most critically, there are two changes to this to the policy manual that have to deal with benefits, and the reason it's being introduced, these particular items are being introduced now is because the county is about to go into open enrollment, and these were some items that we wanted to clarify before that occurred. So the first change relating to benefits has to do with dual coverage of employee spouses. As approved back in March, the manual required that if an employee is eligible to be covered under the family plan of another employee, that both employees be covered under the same family plan. This policy was determined to be unduly restrictive for county employees, and for all intents and purposes, it's going to be cheaper for those employees to be under a family plan anyway, so them taking individual plans is probably a rare outcome and would not have a significant budgetary impact for the county. So that's an area where it would be, again, significantly cheaper for employees to be on a family plan, and it won't be a significant advantage to restricting employee choice in this way. So if somebody wanted to be on a Metro plan and another employee wanted to be on a medical mutual plan, they could do that under this policy. And it really only applies to employees who are either married or have shared dependents of some kind. The other change to benefits has to do with requirements for opting out of healthcare benefits. As you may recall, the policy manual approved in March gives the county the option to give employees a taxable opt-out payment if they decide to waive healthcare coverage. Because the county has an interest in ensuring all of our employees are insured, the policy included a requirement that employees provide proof of alternative coverage in order to be eligible to receive this opt-out payment. Instead, what this legislation will do, employees will simply be required to attest that they have alternative coverage, which saves on the county's administrative expense of accepting and maintaining, the proof of alternative insurance and unnecessary paperwork. It wasn't determined that that would be something that the county would need to do on an ongoing basis. It's our understanding, just for the record, that in 2019, there's not going to be an additional opt-out payment offered to employees other than their ability to earn their biweekly allowance that would otherwise go to cover their healthcare premiums. Moving on to the next change, the next couple changes are not related to benefits, but were things that either were addressed or brought up and raised to council's attention or to HR's attention. So the first one here is that has to do with sick leave for part-time employees. And in this area, This policy is being updated to allow part-time employees to earn sick leave. The manual approved in March distinguishes between part-time benefits eligible employees and part-time not benefits eligible employees. As adopted, the policy only allowed benefits eligible employees to accrue sick time. It was brought to our attention, however, that Ohio law actually requires that all part-time employees have the ability to accrue sick leave based on the number of hours worked. And the Supreme Court actually ruled on a similar fact pattern presented in a case involving the city of Cleveland about a decade ago. So this is an area where we don't have the home rule authority to deviate from Ohio law. So we're just bringing the manual in conformity with Chapter 124 of the revised code. There's also a change to update the vacation policy for bargaining employees. This has to do with the vacation policy in March was changed. Prior to this March, new employees could not earn vacation time until their one-year anniversary date following a date of hire. That policy was changed in the new policy manual so that new employees now start accruing vacation as soon as they're brought on board. They're not given a bank of hours when they get here, but as soon as they start working, they can start accruing vacation time. However, that doesn't apply to a number of bargaining unit employees that had provisions in them where, again, you would have vacation accrual begin at the one-year anniversary start date. So what the policy is being changed to do is to address this inconsistency and allow the Director of Human Resources to allow bargaining unit employees to take unpaid leave in their first year. So if you need to take time off, and this was a policy actually under the old policy manual, was that if you were in your first year and you needed to take time off, you had the option of taking unpaid, they called it administrative leave. And so that will continue for those bargaining unit employees that don't start accruing vacation time immediately upon hire. And then the final provision that's being changed in this legislation deals with FMLA, the Family Medical Leave Act accrual, basically, or usage. The manual currently states that FMLA leave must be in minimum increments of 1 hour. However, other types of leave in our manual can be taken in increments of 1 minute. And so to remain consistent there, the policy is being changed to allow employees to take FMLA leave consistent with our other leave policies. So it's more employee friendly in that way. So those are the changes that are in the legislation as it was referred to committee. The administration has also introduced a proposed substitute for the committee's consideration today, and there are 3 notable changes, or 2 changes and some additional verbiage added to the ordinance itself. So I'll go through the changes that are in the actual manual, and then we'll talk about the ordinance itself. Both of the changes in the proposed substitute have to do with the accrual of exchange time and straight pay. I know this is something that was discussed at length back in March. And as I think the county's had a lived experience with how this is operated, the administration has come back with some recommendations. The first change has to do with holidays, and it clarifies that if a county employee is required to work on a county holiday, they are eligible to earn either exchange time or straight time pay, even if they don't exceed 40 hours in a given work week. This was an area of ambiguity when the policy manual was passed back in March, but we believe this is in line with what council intended to do at that time, particularly because we're dealing with numerous examples of employees receiving premium pay for working on a county holiday. That was an example that was discussed in committee. It perhaps could have been clearer in the text of the actual manual, so we're bringing that in line with what we believe council intended at that time. The second item in the proposed substitute has to do with eligibility and circumstances in which exempt salaried employees are eligible to earn straight time pay. And as you recall, in the manual that was approved in March, council narrowly limited these circumstances to meeting urgent public health or safety needs, meeting mandatory deadlines for the reappraisal, and implementing ERP and real property systems. The language here is being revised to add to that list payroll deadlines, meeting payroll deadlines. That's been an ongoing issue related to processing payroll, particularly if there's a payroll week that falls on a county holiday, and implementing other IT systems. It refers to them as information systems. But basically, if there are other IT systems like the ERP or the real property system that need to be implemented, that those would also be eligible projects for employees to earn straight time pay. Additionally, the term urgent is being removed from the legislation so that it now addresses public health and safety needs. It doesn't necessarily need to be an urgent public health and safety need. that was an issue that needed to be clarified because we've had a couple holidays where either CCOMs or supervisors for 696 kids had to work on a county holiday, and there were coverage issues, and there was some concern that certain people might not think of that as an urgent public health and safety need, but it certainly is an ongoing public health and safety need that 911 operators and child support operators are answering the phone and have proper supervision. So those are the two changes to the policy handbook. Speaking directly to the ordinance itself, the administration has introduced some language that would ratify certain accrual of exchange time going back to March. So what the language now says is that council would ratify that payments made to employees using exchange time from March 27, 2018, which was the date the new handbook went into effect, to the enactment of this ordinance, which satisfy the following criteria are being authorized. First, the employee was designated as overtime exempt, meaning that they're earning exchange time instead of comp time or overtime. That the employee received authorization from a supervisor, manager, director, or other officer of the county, and that the employee actually worked hours beyond 40 in a given work week or on a holiday for which he or she received exchange time, which are those are the three typical criteria that we've had in place for how people earn exchange time. I think this is meant to address if there was any ambiguity or confusion about what was in the policy before, to clarify that employees who meet this criteria would be any exchange time earned during this time period is legitimate. So with that, those are all of the changes in both the legislation and the proposed substitute. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to field them.
Thank you, Councilwoman Conwell.
Through the chair to Mike, you talked about part-time employees can now earn sick time. What is the hours for that is considered part-time?
So part-time is considered anybody who works less than 30 hours a week, and how our manual distinguishes part-time benefits eligible and part-time not benefits eligible is simply a designation. There's no hourly requirement there. In terms of the sick time accrual, I believe the revised code provides that for every 80 hours a part-time employee works, however much they work in a given week, they're entitled to, I think it's 4.6 hours of paid sick leave.
I don't think I was clear on the new employees start with the bank of vacation time. So I'm just a little confused about that.
Sure. So under the old policy manual, up until this March, if you start at the county as a new employee, you would not accrue any vacation time until your 1-year anniversary date. And then on your anniversary date,
You
get a
accrued it,
bank.
but you couldn't
You accrued
use
it, but
it.
you couldn't use it. Exactly. So you'd accrue it, you technically accrue it exactly on your 1-year anniversary date. You get a bank of 80 hours automatically. I think the concept there was, we didn't want employees coming on board and immediately taking vacation and then quitting. People could potentially game the system in certain ways. So it was meant to prevent that. But I think there's less of a concern of that. I don't think that's really been borne out in how things have operated since March. So the new policy says that as soon as you're hired, you start accruing vacation time. You don't have a bank of hours when you first start.
Right.
Nobody's granted like 80 hours upon their start date. It's simply when on your start date, with your first biweekly paycheck, you earn whatever it is, 3.2 hours per biweek, whatever that is, and then that will continue through your employment, and will increase as you hit your anniversary dates, as has always been the case.
So how would this look, and this might be a question for Doug Dykes, if they're new employees on their probationary period and they need to utilize some of their time that they may have accrued, how is that going to look? How are they going to be viewed, I guess, from that department? So it's probably just making sure that things line up. A new employee, I was always taught, don't take off any day for a year. Show your employee that that you can overcome any obstacles. But with this, I'm just a little worried. How would that new employee be viewed if they're in probationary period, but they actually have their vacation time and they need to use it?
Thank you. Douglas Dykes from Human Resources. I think what we have to remember is that we had a provision in the policy manual that allowed people to take off. They just wouldn't get paid. So they're still allowed to take off. We're just going to pay them based on their accrued time.
being the talent manager, how are you assimilating that information down to the directors? 'Cause, you know, there's an old way of standards. You're a new employee, you have to be a certain way, you know, and no matter what job you do, you're looked at and, you know, I know the policy has changed on paper, but has there been training with the directors to kind of accommodate this?
There's been a lot of conversations around this. And as we do everything we can to strive to become an employer of choice, what we are finding is that the demographics of employees are changing. And those demographics include a lot of single parents. They include a lot of women in the workforce. And what we were hearing for the 2 years that I've been here is that, you know, it's unconscionable that we can't take off when I've got something to do with my kid at school or I've got something to do here. And so we have done a lot of communication to the directors. We believe that this change in approach is actually making our organization being more palatable to apply for jobs here. But we have communicated to our directors and our supervisors and trained them on this.
I agree to a point. Used to be an employee here, so I'm very well aware of the atmosphere in some of the agencies and how they treat some employees different than others. And so I just want to make sure that that's, you know, in particular DCFS, but, you know, most of those employees are under the union. There's just some things, you know, some inconsistencies. Even though we're changing the policy, it might not be implemented like your vision is. So just want to, and I will speak to Walter about this, just to make sure that it's very clear of how some deputy chiefs are making sure that their supervisors are being equitable and how they treat all their employees in terms of this. New ones as well, because, you know, that's one of our heated areas right now. We're trying not to lose any DCFS employees or caseworkers.
We have our eye on that too.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Councilman Miller.
I would like to ask of the administration to get some information regarding how much straight time for hours worked beyond the criterion has been paid so far since the new policy went into effect in March.
You.
I can say something about that. The county executive or his designee must sign off on that. And we've construed the policy the way it's written in terms of the special situations where it applies. So it's been relatively few. I can't give you a number, but we will get a number to council on that. But it's dealt with some CCOM employees who were dealing with public health and safety emergencies. And there were some issues with the appraisal, the tricentennial appraisal. But as to the number of incidents, it's been fairly small. As to the dollars involved, we'll have to get that to you. Okay?
Okay, I would appreciate that information. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? I have a few, and I think that they'll probably be more appropriate for HR. So when we talk about the straight time pay and the transition or the changes that were made, I understand that there's some people that are being grandfathered in. Can you touch a little bit on what circumstances and scenarios outside of payroll and IT that was intended to cover?
Douglas Dykes, Human Resources. You said there were some people that are being grandfathered in. I'm not sure I 100% understand.
Mike, can you clarify for me with,
Yeah, so the language actually deals with exchange time rather than straight time pay.
Okay.
And this is the language that's being added to the ordinance itself, not the handbook. So I think that's what the councilwoman's referring to.
so is there a population of people with regards to that exchange time that this was intended to cover?
Yes.
Okay, and are there some circumstances that have transpired that prompted this
So
outside of payroll and IT?
yes, so
Okay.
there are a number of departments that have, when it comes to working exchange time, that have requested. So let me sort of take a step back.
Okay.
Because of the language that was written in the policy manual, individuals felt very constrained to not really understanding when they could get exchange time or not. And because we did not want to interpret and it not be what council was looking for, those employees were sort of apprehensive about wanting to use exchange time or wanting to earn exchange time for those reasons. And so part of this is just a clarification and to give supervisors some more definitions or some support to be able to issue this exchange time.
Okay, so is there anyone that has fallen into this category already? Clearly, there's some. So can you provide for us a list of individuals with time bank versus time earned during this period?
Yeah. So why don't we get that list together and provide it to council?
Okay, and
Okay.
if you would be so kind as to provide it before our council meeting at the very latest next Tuesday, close of business?
We will.
Okay, all right. Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns from the committee? Councilwoman Conwell?
To Mike, to the chair, to.
Thank you.
Oops, to the chair, to Mr. King. You mentioned at the beginning part about partners being on each other's plans. So, trying to remember what my question was that. So, we have employees that husband and wife teams here. Are you saying that they have to be on the family plan together, or can they still choose to be on separate plans and pay their own co-pays? Because I know in some instances we have city and county husband and wife teams. So I may choose to be on my husband's and not utilize here. Are you saying that we have to still pay as a county some sort of administrative? Okay.
Yeah,
explain
no,
that.
thank you for
Kinda
asking the
messing
clarifying question because I clearly wasn't specific enough. So under the policy that was approved in March, there was a requirement that said, and again, this really hasn't gone into effect because the adoption of the policy was after last year's open enrollment, so there's no changes that have occurred here. But what the policy said that was approved in March was that if two county employees were eligible for coverage, say they were a domestic partner or a married couple, that they were required to be on the same family plan. I think the concept behind that was it's going to be cheaper for the county as an employer to pay the premiums for two employees under a family plan than two individual plans for two different employees. I think in practice, the savings there are going to be basically negligible because most employees who are married and both work for the county are going to take the family plan anyway because it's going to be cheaper for them as well. But it seemed unduly restrictive to say that if one spouse wanted to be on the Metro plan and another spouse wanted to be on a medical mutual plan, that they wouldn't have the choice, right? It's about the employee's ability to choose what coverage they got. And so the language here is being changed so that we're no longer mandating that employees who are married with the county take the same family plan. They still can, they have that option, but they're not required to. And this provision does not in any way apply to employees with spouses who do not work for the county. So in your scenario, you and your husband have benefits from different employers, and you still have the option as to whether or not to be under one individual coverages or have a joint family plan, but that's your own decision. That's not affected by this policy.
So has the policy changed over here for the two married couple to actually utilize two different plans if they want?
Yes, that's the employees are given the choice that they can now they can use different plans if they want to.
Because a lot of individuals not necessarily want to be on the family plan because they might have two different doctors and what all they're going through. So
Right.
this is something that's a benefit,
Yes,
but it's not cost prohibitive to us.
Correct.
Is that what you're saying? Okay, thank you.
All right, any additional questions, comments, or concerns? All right, there being none, we'll move this to the full body of the council under second reading suspension. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved in second. If there are no questions,
Excuse me,
comments, or
Mr. Chair,
concerns.
did we have to, the proposed substitute, did we have to vote on the proposed substitute?
Oh, yes, okay, I'm sorry. And, oh, yes, we have the proposed substitute, so I'd like to make a motion to move from the proposed to, I'd like to make a motion for the proposed substitute. Okay, it's been moved in second. If there are no questions, comments, or concerns regarding the proposed substitute, all in favor, please say aye. All right, and that being said, I'd like to make a motion to move this to the full body of the council under second reading suspension using the proposed substitute. Is there a second? It's been moved in second. If there are no additional questions, comments, or concerns, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, thank you. Any miscellaneous business? There being none, this meeting is adjourned.